Hello, chaps and chapettes, and we're back in the classroom now to look at something called half-life, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to know about half-life to get through your GCSEs. So there are a couple things you need to know, and there's basically 3 things that you need to be able to do. Number 1, what you need to know is the definition for half-life, actually what it is. And you also need to be able to understand the random nature of radioactive decay and be able to use half-life graphs. The challenge today is to tell me when Half-Life 3 is coming out, because I've been waiting for a long time. I've heard lots of rumors, and I think it's coming out at the end of this year, but I don't know. I would just love to know. The actual challenge today is to tell me, oh gosh, it doesn't even sound like a real challenge. Tell me why popcorn is actually the best example of radioactive decay in terms of half-life that you can find. And I hope to see some experiments from you guys in the comment section below. So let's get started with a definition of half-life. First, half-life is the time it takes for half of the unstable nuclei in your sample of radioactive material to decay. And that's basically saying you start off with a lump of material and all of it is radioactive, and then after a certain amount of time, half of it would have kicked out some ionizing radiation, and that would have been the time it takes to half itself, or basically the lifetime it takes to half life. And that's really easily seen by looking at the count rate of your radioactive material. So using a Geiger-Müller tube or a little spark generator or something like that, and counting how many times it sparks or how many times it ticks, and seeing how long it takes to half, and that's basically half-life. Okay, so it's a relatively straightforward thing. There's a reason why we need this one, and what we're going to do is, first of all, you're going to hit the like button for me so that you can help me on the YouTube algorithm, and then I'm going to go to the back of the classroom and show you exactly why we have to use half-life. So with that said, write down your definition and then come join me at the back. Right, so this is actually one of my favorite experiments. Let's get some things over here. Okay, so what we have here is approximately 100 dice. I'm not sure if it is 100 dice anymore because some of them has been lost over the years, but well, here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw these dice, because these dice are in fact radioactive particles. And when it lands on a 4, a 5, or a 6, this thing is going to emit an ion and therefore emit ionizing radiation and therefore decay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scatter this now, and well, let's see what happens. Oh, love that sound. Okay, I'll be with you in a second. I'm just going to probably speed this up or skip through it. Well, there we go. That was relatively straightforward. So what we have now is we have these guys which have all emitted radiation. And I know that someone's going to point out that that is an R2. Sometimes I knock these things over. Don't get too bent out of shape over it, okay? So I'm just going to jostle these around, just separate these guys out because we'll need them later. And just jostle these around into a nice long line. There we go. Now that is a lovely, satisfying line. What we're going to do is just going to move that over to here. And there we go. And then up there. And then that's a nice straight line. All right, so what we're going to do is take these dice and do the same thing again. Okay, these are approximately 100 dice. We have half a chance of them falling at 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 4, 5, or 6. Half a chance of being 1, 2, 3. So we should have about 50 in that pile and about 50 in this pile. It's not going to be exact, but that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so we've got 50 in this pile, and what we should be seeing now. One runaway dice. I'll pick that up in a second. What we should be seeing now is approximately 25. So here we go. That's incredible. There we go. All right, I'll be back in a second. I'm just going to tie these up and see which ones we got. Okay, so we have 2 approximately equal size groups again. I'm just going to put this into a nice long line. Here we go. Now this is of course showing us the random nature of radioactive decay. We can't be sure when a particle is going to kick out ionizing radiation. We can't really be sure when. We can create conditions for it, but we can't be exactly sure when that will happen. So this is a fairly good model for how radioactivity works. Now we should have approximately 25 in here, and this is where the numbers get a bit annoying. To roll these again, we should have half and half, so 12.5 dice in each pile. And I'll get back to you after I tie this up again. Right, there we go. 2 approximately equal piles. And this is now going to be another line on there. There we go. Lovely straight line. There. And just to make sure someone comments about this in the comments section below. There we go. Enjoy. So, the next one there. And this should be much quicker now. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Approximately 2 equal sizes again. Line it up against there. There we go. And roll again. And, oh, crikey. That was a fairly reasonable thing there. Now, all we need to do is just wait for this to become a 4, 5, or 6. And there we go, like that. Now, we're going to take away, okay, put that back now. There. We're going to take these away. And we will end up with a lovely... Oh, that's just going to irritate people. Hang on 1 second. There. A lovely exponential graph. All right, so this axis is going to be time. And this is going to be activity. And if we wanted to work out half-life, we need to see when it's half activity. Now, this is approximately 50 dice. This is approximately 25. So the half-life is there. So this has approximate activity, half-life of about 2 whatevers. It could be like 2 years, 2 seconds. So if you say seconds on there, 2 seconds. Ridiculously short half-life, but there we go. So every 2 seconds, it will half its values. And there we go. Now, because it's halving it, this, strictly speaking, will become a 0.5, and then a 0.25, and then 0.125, and so on and so forth for the dice. Which means this never actually gets to 0. Which means that for a given sample, you should be expecting that to be radioactive for pretty much ever, but it gets to the point where you just don't care anymore, so we leave it at that. Anything more to say about this? No, I think that's it, right. Okay, so you should have seen the construction there of an exponential curve, and how it looks and how we actually get there, and sort of understand that basically all this is essentially random. We can't tell when something is going to emit radiation, but we can create the conditions for it. We still can't say, now you kick out ionizing radiation. So we should have a nice curve like this, and if you wanted to work out the count rate or number of active nuclei for a particular graph, what you do is you say, okay, I draw a line from the time part and say, okay, on this time there is this much activity, okay? Now, sometimes you may be asked to say, okay, what is the half-life of this particular material? It's really easy. You look at your starting number activity, and then what you do is you go down to half that value, and then, well, see what time is, okay? And that should be really straightforward. So, there you go. Those are the things you need to be able to do to know about half-life. You now know the definition of half-life. You also know that all this stuff is essentially random in nature. And you should also be able to use half-life graphs. And honestly, you should be able to draw them. They're not terribly complicated. You just need to be careful that you're using the exponential curve on there. So, the challenge today is to tell me why is popcorn a really, really good example of half-life decay. And for this, I recommend you go and grab yourself a bag of popcorn, stick it in the microwave, and listen carefully to the pops. And I will catch you in the next video, guys. 1, 2.